What does the turntable sound like? Really nothing. It's a table with a very, very low noise floor, really no background noise. You forget wondering if the speed's stable because it's so stable. You're just listening to the music and enjoying it in, I think, the purest form you're going to hear. I'm Alan Perkins, lead analog designer for MoFi Electronics, and this is the new MasterDeck. I've been designing turntables close to 40 years now. In designing a turntable, I think of a few fundamental things. They have to do with noise, because a cartridge is a fantastically sensitive pickup, and it doesn't just pick up the grooves in the record. It picks up any noise that it's presented with, much like a microphone. So I think of that, and then I think of what does that cartridge want to pick up to present the best music to the listener from an album that doesn't have resonances going through it, which are actually partly induced by the cartridge itself, and to isolate it from outside noises and interference that, which it's going to be in that environment because you're in a room with speakers playing. And you have to isolate it from the noises within the turntable. And you want that record to turn at a very stable speed, so you hear a faithful reproduction of the original recording. For the MasterDeck arm, we wanted to make something special. And what we had with the Studio Decks and Ultra Decks were fairly standard, high-performing, well-performing gimbal designs. But I thought we could get some of that unipivot arm performance out of this arm by creating a combination of unipivot and gimbal arm design that did its best to take the advantages of both. So for the lateral motion of the arm, we have 3 points of contact. There's a unipivot point supporting it vertically and 2 ruby balls that support it as it rotates around its axis. Those 3 points offer the fast energy transfer and the stability of a gimbal, but still give the performance benefits of a unipivot. For the yoke, the part that works in the vertical motion of the arm, that is a more standard gimbal design, except we were able to locate very, very high quality bearings. Those bearings are rated for high performance in a function that requires tens of thousands of RPM per minute speed, which will never be seen with a Tonearm. So they are made to perform exquisitely, far beyond what a Tonearm requires. And I was very happy to be able to do that in that other plane of motion. So the arm has a lot of unipivot advantages. It has an advanced gimbal system for its vertical motion, and it offers all of the adjustments we needed for zenith, overhang, VTA, azimuth, anti-skate, and tracking force. I think it's really important that you can adjust all the required parameters to get the most out of your cartridge. With the MasterDeck arm, we're using aluminum and some pretty exotic materials, of course, in bearing design, synthetic sapphires, rubies, ceramic ball bearings. In the past, what I was using was a carbon fiber wrapped aluminum tube. And it was very, very good and used in the RPM and spiral groove designs. But what I could do was design a carbon fiber tube with an interior taper that really addressed any potential resonances while keeping super lightweight and high rigidity that carbon fiber is known for. So that gives us a very well-damped arm tube and rigidity that we couldn't accomplish with other materials. The MasterDeck uses the spiral groove patented counterweight. As that counterweight is traveling across the pivot point, it's moving some of the mass forward of the pivot point for lightweight cartridges and moving all of the mass behind the pivot point for heavyweight cartridges. And what it accomplishes is keeping that mass close to the pivot, which creates a very low moment of inertia for the cartridge, and allows the arm to handle a very wide range of cartridge weights without adding weights or changing the counterweight on the arm. The removable head shell, unlike other removable head shells or most other removable head shells, does not have the contacts in it for the wiring. You can attach the cartridge to the head shell in a very comfortable place, like at your desk with a lamp and a magnifier if you wanted to. So the cartridge is put on without having to deal with the wires. It's when you attach it to the arm is when you attach the clips to the cartridge. If you've got a collection of cartridges, they could all be attached to different head shells. All the overhangs can already be pre-adjusted. You can have a reference mark for the azimuth adjustment, and all you have to do is attach the clips to the cartridge and readjust the tracking force. And the cartridge setup is mostly done by prior adjustment. The reason I designed that is because I didn't like adding extra contact points to the signal path, and that's avoided with this head shell. So my beliefs have been that an AC synchronous motor will create the most reliable, consistent speed accuracy for turntables. The synchronous motor synchronizes to the frequency put out by the wall current, or the frequency it's fed. That's very frustrating for anybody who notices small changes in pitch. You hear it in pianos and orchestral music, and we wanted to avoid that. So to use the strengths of an AC synchronous motor and avoid that, we create our own frequency, and that's done with an advanced motor drive system. The thing with the MasterDeck that's really great is the drive tests the speed at startup. So it knows that the platters hit 33.33, and at that point it's no longer monitoring the platter and adjusting the speed of the platter during play. What it's doing is monitoring that there has been no change to the motor. The motor is locked in and driving that platter at the frequency it was being driven at when it hit 33.33 at the start of the record. I like Delrin because it has a close vibrational impedance to vinyl, and so it damps the record well, creates a good platform to have a quiet, well-damped record for the cartridge to perform over. But it's rather light. It is expensive to machine, one reason being it takes a really meticulous machinist to get a good cosmetic finish on it. In the Studio Deck and Ultra Deck, we have an all Delrin platter. With the MasterDeck, we were able to create a better platter by using a thick Delrin surface on top of an aluminum platter. What the aluminum platter does is it gives us a material that brings us a different level of stability and a lot more mass and higher accuracy in terms of machining tolerances. So that combination of aluminum and Delrin creates a high inertia, well-damped platter, and still gives us the surface with a good match to vinyl that I think is important to hearing the real tonal balance that was put in the record off the master tapes. If you have an unstable platter, because the cartridge is so sensitive, even the smallest fluctuations can be heard. Very often they're obvious, where you hear some warbling in like a long piano note. Also vibration that comes through because of not having a good platter surface or because the bearing is not stable enough. That affects imaging in ways that you really can't identify until you compare it to a table that's not as stable. Another point of speed stability and physical stability in turntables, of course, is the bearing. In the MasterDeck, the belt is driving actually at the middle of the bearing, so it's stable both above and below the point of rotation, meaning that it won't go into oscillation. It has a minimum contact area that means it has the very lowest noise we can get and still provide the reliability. And it really comes very close to the spiral groove original design, which was a cost no object. In fact, I would say the performance is an equal, even though we've developed a way to manufacture it at a lower price point. The bearing is encapsulated and kind of sealed. There's zero maintenance to it. The customer should be able to put it together, take it out of the box, lubricate it. And in the experience I've had with RPM and spiral groove, I sometimes get a phone call saying, my turntable is 20 years old, should I oil the bearing? And the answer is sometimes no. It's still just as good as it was 20 years ago. When I got started in turntable design, most consumers had to buy a table from one company and an arm from a different company. The designers were more specialists at those individual parts, and they didn't always smoothly integrate. And it was always a nice idea to have one company with one philosophy make both arm and table. But often there weren't people with the specialty for both of those different design requirements. And I was interested in both. I made both, but with MoFi, it comes to a different level because we're a design team. So I can bring fundamental ideas about a motor to a specialist at motor drive design, get custom motors made even. The things that I really love, I have a team now to go over those individual aspects of design and really bring focused expertise to each of them. After this long journey, we're ready to ship the MasterDeck. And I have to say I'm really thrilled for so many people to hear what this deck can do. I am happy that such a good product can get into so many people's hands and offer the value this does, being able to get them a product that I know sounds great and I know is going to be fun for them to use and serve them well for so many years.